Hi, I'm Sarah Tyke, host of the Interested Reader podcast. Each week I'll bring you a short lesson in physics or astronomy, followed by a brief overview of what's happening out there in the universe. We'll also merge the wonders of science with the depths of spirit and discuss the metaphysical and spiritual aspects of our universe and ourselves. Come with me as we explore stars and souls, the intersection of science and spirit. Hi everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Interested Reader podcast. I'm really excited because this is the third one now that I've done in as many weeks. So I've been doing one a week, which isn't going to hold, I don't think. I've been really looking forward to doing these episodes. I still am, but I've got some other things that I want to be working on now. And so these will probably come out more like every other week. And I really wanted to get this one out because, first of all, today is Halloween. So I didn't know if I was actually going to be able to be recording on Halloween, but here we are. And it's actually storming outside. It's windy and rainy. It's very Halloween-y outside right now. So this is kind of exciting for me. I like it. And tomorrow, when the episode is released, is November 1st. And the numbers actually come out to be a number 11, which is a master number. So I really wanted to get this episode out and published on Friday because of that master number thing. I know it probably does sound weird, but I do love numbers, which is why we're doing this. But today is October 31st, 2024, so happy Halloween, everyone. And again, this is one of my favorite holidays. And I think I mentioned this in another episode, but I think it also, I guess, was one of my mom's favorites. I know she liked Christmas a lot, but her mom had died just a few weeks before Christmas, so I know the holidays always got to be kind of depressing for her. But I didn't realize, I think, just how much she liked Halloween. I know as a kid we always decorated. We had a house in the country with this big old maple tree. So in the fall, the leaves fall off. It looks really creepy and pretty ominous. And the house is up on a hill. So it's a long walk up this steep driveway. We're out in the country again. There's nobody really trick-or-treating anyway. But we would take the leaves and rake them into mounds, like burial mounds, with headstones. And they weren't like the cute, like I've seen headstones in stores now. They're like these cute, like foam ones that look pretty nice. Ours were just like old wood that we just had around that we just nailed together into a cross for like a headstone, or we just cut it or just stuck it in the ground. It was pretty weird. It was kind of creepy looking. I liked it. But so I didn't think we did a whole lot different, but my mom had decorated her apartment. So again, I don't remember if I've told this, so I'm sorry if I have, but so she had a stroke in 2019, and she and my stepdad lived on a boat, I don't know, 20 years or so. So when she had a stroke, they had to move off the boat because you can't get on and off a boat. She wasn't confined to a wheelchair at first, but she was very heavily wheelchair bound. I mean, she could get up and walk around after the stroke, but they had to get an apartment. So she decorated the apartment with a lot of Halloween stuff, and I didn't realize it. Like, she had these bats on the wall, and we would do video calls, every week. And I think she put them up for Halloween, and then she never took them down. And I'm just thinking, like, does she just, can she not take them down? Maybe my stepdad just isn't, he doesn't really care, so he just leaves them up there. So I went down there to visit her, and the first thing I did was she had them on the wall, and they were all kind of crooked like they're flying, and she had this picture on the wall that was crooked. And every time we do these video calls, I see this crooked picture, and I'm like, Mom, can you just straighten the picture out? Normally, I don't really care about crooked pictures, whatever. I'd put them up there crooked, doesn't bother me. But it just seemed kind of weird, because I thought that she was the kind who would want a straight picture. So this picture's always crooked on her wall, and I'm like, Mom, can you straighten it out? And so we go down there to visit her, and like the first thing I do is try to straighten this picture out, and it falls off the wall and breaks. And I'm just thinking, like, I've been in her new apartment all of like 10 minutes and I've already broken a picture off the wall. So the apartment came fully furnished. I mean, keep in mind, my parents at this point are, in their 70s. So it's not like, they, then they lived on a boat. You don't have a lot of decorations and home furnishings on a boat. And honestly, my mom took care of all this stuff. My stepdad was, they had, I think, more of the traditional roles where he was the provider. She did like a lot of the home stuff. So now he's in the totally opposite reversed role, and so he didn't really know what to do. So there's no real, decorations. The apartment came furnished. So I find in the closet there's another set. This painting she had up was like a set of 3. So I put another one up, and I'm doing it all nice and straight. And she comes over, and she can't speak really well because the stroke gave her a condition called aphasia, which means your speech center is pretty much gone. You can babble and you can make sounds, but you don't get a whole lot of words. She got a few, but it never really got, intelligible. But so she comes over and she's like telling me, like, basically don't straighten the picture. And I'm like, you want it crooked? Like, this is... And yes, it was by design because the bats on the wall were supposed to be flying like out of the picture. And so as they're flying out, the picture's all wobbly and crazy. So she was actually going for it. This was a whole thing that she had planned, was to have this crooked picture with these bats flying out of it. And I never fully understood it, like on all these video calls. It was just, so it was kind of weird. So, and then apparently, like in her house, they just had a bunch of Halloween decorations. She would just leave up, the skeleton candlesticks and the black cats, and it's just kind of weird. I didn't know that she was that into Halloween to actually leave decorations up, 24/7. But then come Christmas time, she also put up all the Christmas decorations. So they had these 2 holidays like kind of almost perpetually up because she didn't take anything down. They had nutcrackers. They still had nutcrackers up when we went down after she died. This was in August. I mean, she must have taken down some of the stuff, but she had like the Christmas gnomes and some of that stuff was still up in August. So, I just thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, so this was one of apparently her favorite holidays. So, and I've always liked it too, because I kind of like the weird creepiness of it. And again, the veil is thinning between the 2 worlds. So maybe I'll do a whole episode about Halloween, because I know there's some, not so good background to Halloween as to how it started. Like I think I mentioned this before. I'm pretty sure it was based on satanic ritual sacrifices. But I mean, clearly that's not what we're doing now. Now it's just to get candy and carve pumpkins, which I still have a pumpkin not carved in my dining room. I keep meaning to do it, but I haven't yet. So I don't know. We might just at this point, if we don't do it today, I mean, what's the point of carving into a jack-o'-lantern? So anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. So, oh yeah, today's number is actually a 4, which suggests dependability, stability, loyalty. Tomorrow's number, though, this is the reason I wanted to get this recorded. Oh, sorry, this is what we're going to do today. We're talking about numerology, some history of it, the different types of numerology, and just a couple examples. And today's number, or it will be tomorrow when the episode is published, so on November 1st, 2024, is a master number 11, and that's kind of a big deal in numerology. These master numbers, they're considered to be more powerful than single digits. And 11 has a meaning of envisioning, a strengthening of your envisioning process, inspiration, spiritual awakening. It's very connected to divine and spiritual processes. And it reduces to the number 2, which has a strong presence of grace and power. Again, very strong intuition. So I thought that was kind of cool because I like the master number aspect of 11/1/2024. And again, I'm doing this through the Pythagorean method, where you just add up all the digits of the number of the date and reduce it. When you get to a master number like 11, 22, or 33, you can stop there and then get the meaning of that master number, and then you can reduce it one more. So it's kind of like you've got the strong presence of the master number 11, but it also reduces to the number 2, and you can combine those aspects into, which again is also intuition and grace, power. Just that's kind of cool. That's why I really want to get this episode published on the 1st. All right, so first, before we get into all the numerology, we're going to talk about a quote of the day. And this comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a Vietnamese Buddhist. I don't know if he's actually a monk now. I know at some point he was excommunicated or exiled from Vietnam. And he spent a lot of time in prison, essentially for, opposing the government. And his whole thing was basically just to be peaceful. He just wants to bring peace and love. And he's very big into what they call walking meditation. So if you ever find that you can't sit still to meditate, you should look into Thich Nhat Hanh's method. I mean, it's just walking. That's all it is. But you do it very mindfully. You don't just, get distracted with your headphones and your podcast and your music. You're very grounded in the moment. And the idea is to you basically feel every single step that you take. And you're very mindful of every step when you're walking. And that's a meditation. And he's very big into that. And I love his writings. So this was a quote that I found. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And I found this because at the time I was listening to a podcast. They were doing like a live seminar that I was just watching. And everyone on the call is obviously, they're all very optimistic and they're all, very successful. And at the time I was just feeling like I'm not successful. I was feeling like there's just, there's no way for me to be happy. And I just kept thinking like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how do I be happy? And this is a question I keep asking myself lately because I've just been having some issues. But it's kind of like, what do I need to be happy, and how do I be happy? What is the way to happiness? So as I was on this seminar call that I was watching, the host brought up Thich Nhat Hanh, and as it's been a while since I've read some of his stuff, so I was just looking at some quotes from him, and this was like one of the first ones that popped up. As I'm sitting here wondering, how can I figure out how to be happy? What is the way for me to be happy? And then this one comes up: there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta keep that. So that is our quote of the day. So I hope you guys can find some sort of, hope that helps a little bit, someone out there. So let's get on to our space news. So we're going to talk about some things that you can see in the sky this month in November 2024. So there's kind of a lot going on. We've got some meteor showers, a supermoon, Saturn's in a good viewing position, and Uranus. For Saturn and Uranus, you'd need a telescope if you have one. You don't need a very high-powered one. I think sometimes you can see Saturn with binoculars, but I don't know if you'll see the rings with binoculars. But those two are in a good viewing position. So meteor showers. The Orionids are actually still going on. They peaked on October 20th, but I think they go through mid-November-ish. So the first of the showers that will be peaking soon is the Taurids. So all comets are always, or meteor showers are named for the constellation where they originate from. So these originate from the constellation Taurus. And there's actually two streams. There's a north and south Taurid stream, basically the same area of the constellation. And Taurids are known for being large meteors that have kind of a slow trail across the sky, so very dramatic. They're very cool if you can see them, but they're also pretty infrequent at only about 5 per hour. And the Orionids at their peak is usually about 20 or more per hour. So if you can get a Taurid, it's probably pretty cool, but it's hard to see them just because they're so infrequent. And so these are produced by the Earth traveling through the debris field of Comet Encke, and the Orionids come from Halley's Comet. So as these comets travel through the solar system, they leave a kind of a debris field, and as we pass through those fields, it gives us these meteor showers. So these are Comet Encke. I think I'm saying that right, I'm not entirely sure. And then the next, excuse me. So the southern Taurids will peak on November 5th, and the northern Taurids will peak on November 12th. So they're actually going on right now. There's just, I don't remember when they started, but they'll peak here on the 5th and the 12th of November. And if you go outside, look for the constellation Taurus around midnight. And these you never have to look exactly at the constellation to see them. Meteors can happen all over the sky. They're just named for the place where they would originate. So that debris cloud is kind of in that area where you would see Taurus. So maybe most likely to see them there, but you can look anywhere. The best option for meteor viewing is to always find a place where you have the most sky visible, whether or not the constellation is front and center, wherever you can see the most of the sky. So around midnight is the best viewing time. I think Taurus is, that's probably when it's about its highest. And I think right now the moon is probably okay. It's not full yet. I think we're just coming out of a new moon. But I think by the 12th it starts to get too bright, and it might wash out some of these. So the next meteor shower is the Leonids, and those peak on November 18th. And they will originate from the comet Leo, or the constellation Leo. And this is the debris field of comet Tempel-Tuttle. And it was the Leonid meteor shower in 1966 that had rates of thousands of meteors per minute for 15 minutes. So, I mean, it was described as actually literally like rain from the sky were these meteors for 15 minutes. Typical rates are usually 10 to 15 per hour. So still not quite as, it's probably on par with the Orionids, that 20-ish range. But yeah, that would have been so cool to see. I've always wanted to get a piece of meteorite. I'm not sure. I've heard that you're not allowed to keep meteors and that you're supposed to report them and whatever. And I think there's some issue with, are they going to be radioactive or whatever? I don't think so. I think they'd be fine. The chances of me finding one are probably zero. But I've always wanted just a little chunk of space rock. I think that'd be so cool. I know they make jewelry with it, and you can go and you can buy pieces of meteor, but it's just not the same as having one actually come out of the sky. Of course, whenever I'm hoping for this, I'm always hoping, I always put the caveat in there that I want it to be small enough that there's no damage. I don't need anyone or anything hurt or damaged or broken. I just want a little piece of rock that just lands in my driveway. So those are our meteor showers. We have a supermoon coming up on the 15th of November. So supermoon is it's a full moon. It's the closest approach to Earth, so it should look bigger. I don't think it's perceptible. I can't tell the difference. A lot of times in astronomy, when they say that something's at its closest approach, it's going to look big. It's this, it's going to look huge. It doesn't really. I mean, astronomers get all excited about, the closest approach of a planet or a moon or something, because it is kind of cool. Like from, on a cosmic scale, when these things are coming as close as possible, it's a few thousand kilometers, even tens of thousands of kilometers. Here on Earth, it won't look any different. So, I mean, I guess if you're really good, you can maybe tell the difference. I think you'd almost need two moons side by side to compare them, which you're not going to see. So, but it's the full moon, it's the super moon. A lot of times they look red, and that's where you get this blood moon. So it's also called the Beaver Moon because beavers start to build dams for the winter right around now, and they work at night under the light of the moon. I also read that it's because it's the last time to set traps for beavers before the rivers freeze. So it's kind of your last chance to get them. And this is the last of 3 supermoons in 2024. So if you're interested in that, weather permitting, you can go out and see a supermoon on November 15th. And then Saturn ends its retrograde motion. So retrograde means that as we look at it in the sky, it looks like it's going opposite direction of everything else rotating. It's not actually moving opposite. It's just how it looks to us. It's its apparent motion. And on November 15th, it will stop that backwards motion and start looking like it's moving forward like normal. It's also known as turning direct, and it has significant astrological implications when things start to move forward. It's usually kind of a big push of forward momentum and energy, kind of a turning point. And the rings will be more face on than it will be for a long time. Kind of the peak time to see the rings was September 7th of this year. And then the planet's actually it'll rotate, well, our position to it will rotate, appear to rotate and come more edge on through March of 2025, at which point the rings will essentially become invisible. It'll be so edge on to Earth that you won't be able to see the rings. So if you got a telescope, you want to go out and see the rings of Saturn, now is the time to do it before it starts to turn and the rings become more edge on. And then Uranus is going to be in opposition on November 17th. So opposition means that the Earth is going to be between the Sun and Uranus, and it's actually this will be the closest approach that we are. I don't know for how long. But this is when you have the best viewing conditions of Uranus. Again, you'll need a telescope, and it won't look much different than just a blue dot, but it is a nice kind of turquoisey blue color. This picture here is from one of the space telescopes, I believe. If you didn't know, Uranus has a storm on it too. You can kind of see in the picture here, there's a big blue spot, kind of like Jupiter has a giant storm on it. Uranus also has one. So it is possible to see Uranus unaided. It's at its brightest. It'll have a magnitude of positive 5.6, and the naked eye limit is typically 5.5 to 6.5. So the bigger the number, the dimmer the star. So the Sun is like minus 26. That's how bright it is. I think Sirius is the next brightest at around, I want to say it's like a minus 3 or something. Sirius is in Canis Major by Orion. So naked eye limit, if you have really good vision, you're in a really dark place. The sky is dark, not emotionally dark. You go outside, if you get like zero light pollution, you have good eyesight, you can probably see down to a 6.5 magnitude. So it's kind of on the edge at positive 5.6, but you might be able to see it if you've got good vision and it's dark out. And you'll want to look toward the constellation of Taurus to find Uranus if you're going to try telescope or naked eye. And at the end here, we'll get to some sites where you can kind of look at a star map to see where all these things are in the sky. Right here. So, Sky and Telescope is my favorite website to use for this. Space.com has something called Night Sky Tonight, and then Time and Date is another one that has a night sky viewing. So we'll just take a look at these quick, and you'll have to bear with me as I kind of readjust my screen again when we come back. So this is Sky and Telescope. So you can put in your latitude, your longitude. If you don't know it, you just enter in your zip code. And then it gives you a picture of the sky. So this is facing west. And then you can just, I think you can, you rotate, okay. So you can rotate, here we go. So on the right side, there's a big overhead, like they call it a planisphere of the sky. And over here, there's a little green box that you can click and drag all over the planisphere, and then on the left it shows you if you were on the ground looking. So you can drag your green box in the planisphere so it's facing northeast. So you'd go outside, you look to the northeast, and then over in the left panel it will show you what you would see at a certain time. You put in your date, your time, location. So this is one of my favorite ones because you can just drag this little viewing window all over, and then it shows you in the left panel what exactly you would be seeing if you were standing outside. So that's pretty cool. So right now it's set for today, October 31st. So Mars is out there. So that's probably my favorite. Space.com has one called Night Sky Tonight. So this one looked like it was just every day they were just going to give you the highlights of what was to be seen. So you don't really, if you don't want to bother with the planisphere thing and putting in dates and times and locations, space.com just has it where here's the highlights for tonight. Here's what you can see. So they have it for tonight, October 31st. This is at 5 a.m. So they'll just give you kind of the highlights of what's out there. So if you're looking to the southwest, you'll see Venus. The summer triangle is visible, I don't know for how much longer. So they just kind of highlighted a few things. You got the Big Dipper out to the northwest. So it doesn't show you everything that's out there. It's just, again, it's kind of the highlights of what you want to see if you don't want to bother with trying to find everything that's out there. So you can just kind of look through. They have the 30th. So like every day they've got something. So that one's kind of nice if you just want a couple easy highlights. And then time and date is kind of the same thing. I think as Sky and Telescope, where they've got, you can enter in your date. Yeah, so it's kind of another sort of interactive thing where you can put in your night sky, put in your location, and then they'll have, you can kind of click and drag around and see based on your direction what you can see up there. I don't like this one as much. Sky and Telescope to me is just, it's the best. I think it's the easiest to use. I know it made it looks kind of complicated, but it's really, I think the easiest one as far as trying to find anything, because I like how it gives you both what's if you were looking up at the sky and then what's right in front of you if you were just looking at the horizon. So it's pretty cool. But those are 3 good places to start. I'll put those links in the show description. So we'll just head back here. So that is our astronomy science news for the week, and again, those are all monthly things. Most of them are happening throughout the month. Well, that's not true. It's really just the meteor showers that are happening throughout the month. Like I said, they peak here in early November, but they'll go throughout the whole month. So moving right along to our numerology. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of numerology. And before the 20th century, it was called arithmancy. So you've got arithmos plus mantia. Sorry, I'm going to pronounce these things all wrong. So it's Greek arithmos plus mantia. You've got, which means number plus divination. So that's how we get that, is the study of divination through numbers. So the word arithmancy dates back to the late 1500s, or up until then, or around that time. Numerology is not found in English until, the early 1900s. And this is just if you're watching, there's a picture of the cover of a book written in Greek. One of the original or first sort of books or treatises on numerology or arithmancy. So that's when they actually kind of had this, the Greeks put a name to it, or when it was kind of called, it had a name to it. But finding meaning in numbers goes back, I think almost to, all of human history. And as far back as in the 8th century BC, there was an Assyrian inscription that stated that King Sargon II built a wall a particular length to correspond to the numerical value of his name. So they were already, back in 8th century BC, finding meaning in numbers. In the 6th century BC, there was a system of using numbers to represent letters that was developed in the Greek city of Miletus, which is known as the Milesian system. And that one gets used pretty frequently, as we'll see a little bit here. But so numbers corresponding numbers to letters and finding meaning in them goes back a long way, even if it didn't have an official sort of name. So I think we've talked about the Pythagorean system, and that uses a system called isopsephy. And of course, we're reducing the numerical value of a word to one number. And so that comes from the word isos, which means equal, and sephos, which means literally pebble, which is interpreted to mean count, because at the time they would use counting mechanisms or boards. I'm assuming it's kind of like an abacus, but they had pebbles on these boards that would be used for counting. So that's how pebble got related to counting, and then in Latin it became the basis for the word calculus, and in English calculate. So until the Arabic numerals were used in the 8th century, and then they became more widely used in the 1200s in Europe, numbers were often alphabetical. So we've got the ancient Greek numerals that we're all familiar with, the I, V, X, L, C, M. So it wasn't unusual to associate numbers and letters. Like, it was kind of just a thing of the day until we get our standard, our Arabic numerals, that we know of. Kind of stopped associating them with letters and stopped making them alphabetical. But until then, it wasn't. That's just kind of how things were. We used letters and numbers almost interchangeably, it seems. So here's just a chart of the Greek letters and corresponding numerals. So alpha was given a numeral 1, beta 2, gamma 3, and just kind of goes through. And then when you get after 10, then you start getting into kappa's 20, lambda's 30, so you don't go the individual, like 31, 32, 33. It's just 30, 40, 50, 60, and then you go 100, 200, 300, 400. And then you would just combine, 123, you'd have rho, kappa, gamma. And of course, I think probably the most famous example of this is the number of the beast in the Bible. It is given as 666. And I might do a more in-depth episode on this, because there is some translations that have the number as 616, because they use, in some translation, there's a letter called stigma. And if you look on this chart, it's number 6. But some say that because it's an obsolete letter, it got translated incorrectly, and it's translated differently, and so somehow it ends up getting to be a 616 instead of 666. But that's a whole interesting topic, I think, on its own. So numerology is, it's used in the Bible too. But so this is just a basic chart of how they corresponded their numbers to their letters. So then we also have a thing called gematria, which is basically the same sort of thing where you're associating a number with a letter, except here you're using the Hebrew alphabet. And the first evidence of this in use is in 78 BC. And even today it's still a popular practice among Jewish rabbis as a way to interpret the Hebrew Bible. They'll often put numbers to the letters. The ancient Babylonians used a similar system, but they assigned the numbers to whole words and not just letters. And this is a lot like, so their language was what they call logographic, which means you have a picture that represents a concept or several words, kind of like your Chinese language or Egyptian hieroglyphs. And this was done in like the 1800s BC. So again, we're talking, this is a long time ago. People have always seemed to have associated letters and numbers and found meaning in numbers. And we still do it today. So there's a couple different types, and we've talked about a few of these. So we've got alphanumeric, which is where you just assign numbers to letters in the alphabet, and it's basically just almost like just a 1-to-1. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. And then you have the Pythagorean system, where you're just going to use numbers 1 through 9. And that's in the Latin alphabet. That's our A, B, C, D. Instead of alpha, gamma, beta. Did I say that right? Alpha, beta, gamma. If you ever get into physics, you will become, you may as well just take Greek as your second language, because that's how you end up talking, is all in variables, and it's a lot of Greek variables. So So Pythagorean, we've got our Latin alphabet, and it's just numbers 1 through 9. So we'll get to a chart later, but so the first 9 letters of the alphabet get 1 through 9, and then you just repeat it. 1 through 9, then one next set is 1 through 9, and so on. Then you add the numbers, you reduce to a single digit. That's your Pythagorean system. And then you've got an Agrippan system. This was from the 16th century. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa invented it, and he wrote a set of books called the Three Books of Occult Philosophy. And I just have this is just like an original reprint of what he did. And there's just kind of some, I don't remember what the differences were, but it looks a lot like the Greek one, where they go 1 through 9, and then it's 10 through 90, and then 100 through 900. There's just a little bit different letters, I think, in there. And that one just doesn't really get used much today, so I couldn't find a whole lot of information on it, just that it does exist, and it was, I don't know if it was popular back then, but that's when it came about, and it was in use at least for a little while. And then we have the Chaldean system, which we've talked a little bit about. This became popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It's considered to be more accurate than the other, like the Pythagorean system. In this system, the number 9 is considered sacred, so you don't assign it to a letter, you just leave it out. And numbers get assigned based on their sounds. So they equate Latin letters to the Hebrew equivalent, and then the Hebrew letters get assigned a sound. Or they get assigned a number based on the sound. And I'm not sure why there was this seamless extra step of assigning the Hebrew letters to get the sound. I don't know if that's always the case. I feel like I found that was out there. Some sites didn't seem to account for that, and some did. You'll never actually have to go and like learn Hebrew to do this, but that's just how the numbers get assigned, because when we look at this Chaldean chart, which we'll show in a second, the numbers don't just go, you don't just assign 1 through 8, 1 through 8, 1 through 8. It's letters get grouped together because of the sound they make. And I think the vowels aren't all together, I don't know. But if you've ever, I don't know if you know anything about, Hebrew language, but in the Bible, a lot of times names are assigned based on what they sound like. So there was a place that had a drinking well, so you're out, herding, tending your sheep. There's a well with drinking water. The place was named a certain name because it sounded like well. And that happens a lot. A place gets a name or person gets a name because it sounds like some other word. So the sound really has a big impact, and it has, it's kind of what gives meaning. And the Chaldean system allows for name changes. So in this system, there's kind of the belief that if you change your name, you change your destiny. So in numerology, you have a chart that's based on your birth name and your date. And again, if you're going to use the Chaldean system, you can use what's on your birth certificate, and then I think they also have another one you can do with your current name, or what you used most on a regular basis in your daily life. So you got the life path, which is considered to be the most important number. That's kind of like what you're destined to do. Like that's the path you're on. That's what you're going to do while you're here. Your birthday number is your special skills, expression, your strengths and weaknesses, personalities, what you show the world, and a soul urge, which is your deepest desires that make you feel fulfilled. And I think we talked about this in the last episode too. So to get the life path, you just add the digits of your full birth date, month, day, year. Reduce it down to 1 is how we're going to do it. The birth day is just the day of your birth. So if you're born on the 15th, your birthday number is 15 or 6 if you want to reduce it all the way down. The expression number is the numerical value of your full name, the birth name. The personality is the numerical value of the consonants in the name, and then the soul urge is the numerical value of the vowels of your name. And again, how you assign these numbers we'll get to in a second, but it's different based on Pythagorean or Chaldean. So this is the basic Pythagorean system. So again, you start numbering the letters of our alphabet. 1 through 9. So A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once you get to 9, you start back over. So J gets 1, K 2, L 3. You just keep doing it until you get all the way to the end. So the life path number, you add up the numbers of your birth date. So for me, that comes out to be a number 7, which is a seeker. And again, I think we talked about this too. So it's someone who's just like always seeking knowledge, just can't get enough of it. And that, I think, is pretty accurate for me. So the expression number is also known as the destiny number. So this is kind of, what you're essentially, I guess, destined to do here. So you use your birth name, including the maiden name, whatever's on your birth certificate. So here's an example. So taking my first name, Sarah, you take all the letters, you use that corresponding chart for the Pythagorean one. So S is a 1, A is a 1, R is a 9. So you just go and add them up. And you get 20. You reduce that down to a 2, would be my destiny number. And then you do that for your middle name, your last name, you add them all up. So overall for me that means a 3 for a destiny number. And 3s in numerology are creative, they're optimistic, they're problem solving, but they can also become kind of naive and unfocused. Now for me, I wasn't sure that really sounded much, I don't know how accurate that was. I mean, yeah, problem solving, but they really emphasize this idea of being optimistic and joyful, kind of the life of the party, kind of an entertainer. You like to be social, and I'm like, that just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like me. That doesn't seem right. I mean, there are aspects, there are times, because, I mean, we're all a mix of everything, so we're all going to have some aspect of all of these. So, yeah, I mean, there are times when I'm like that, but it just doesn't, that's not how I would describe myself. Never in a million years. I think I read that to my husband, and he was just kind of like, how'd they get you so wrong? So, in my case, Sarah is not my birth name. My parents changed my name when I was 7 months old. So if I use my birth name, my first name comes out to be a 9. And then my middle name, last name, the same. And so that puts me as an expression number of 1, which is someone who is creative, independent. They have good leadership tendencies. A lot of times it's just, they don't necessarily look for leadership. They're just kind of put in that position. A lot of times they'll just take the position too, because they can be very stubborn. They can be too forceful. And a lot of times it's just sort of, they get to be very obstinate and set in their own ways. And they also can have a problem with self-doubt. So I read this description to my husband, and he's like, that's it. Like, that's how I know you. And that resonated. That was like, yes, that is definitely me. So it would seem that the names maybe do make a difference, because using my current name, now again, my name was officially legally changed when I was 7 months old, so it's not like half my life was different. But in those first 7 months, for 7 months I was being called by a different name. It was written down as a different name, so it would seem that energy imprint stuck with me, and then it was changed to Sarah. And again, yeah, there's like some aspects of the 3s with the optimism and the outgoing, fun-loving nature, but I would never describe myself as that. The number 1 being independent, being stubborn. I wouldn't call myself creative, but I'm sort of getting into accepting that, because everyone has always said that I was creative. And I look back when I was a kid, and I was always writing. I was always writing some sort of short stories, or I was always into crafts of any kind. And I always have been, even as an adult too. So I just have a hard time. It's the self-doubt part here that really starts to come through. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm really creative. I don't think I am, because I can't admit it. But so I'm trying to learn how to do that. But so yeah, using my actual birth name really gives a much more accurate description with the expression number of 1. So I thought that was pretty cool. So here's the Chaldean chart. So we don't actually group the numbers. We don't, list them and number them like we do Pythagorean. So they get grouped together. So A, I, J, Q, and Y all get a number 1. B, K, R get grouped as 2. C, G, L, S get 3. DMT number 4, and so on. So they're just grouped together. And again, this is supposed to be based on their Hebrew equivalent. So I would imagine that if you look at the Hebrew equivalent for A, I, J, Q, and Y, they probably all sound very similar in Hebrew. So they all got assigned number 1. I think that's how it goes. I couldn't find any actual breakdown or methodology like that, but just from the description, I would imagine that's how it went. So BKR in Hebrew probably all sound very similar, and they get in the number 2. So in the Chaldean system, you would use your most commonly used name. So if you have a nickname, use that. Although I did see that some numerologists say to use your legal name, so complete opposite. So who knows? Maybe you just do both and pick which one sounds best. Which, I mean, it could work. That's kind of what I just did. I mean, I've got my birth name and I've got my everyday name, my new name, and one fits and one doesn't. So if I just use my, the name I've had now for almost 44 years, Sarah, using the Chaldean system, I get a 12, which you add those up to get a 3. Now in the Chaldean system, they have what's called a compound number. So if you do the full name, Sarah's, the 12-3 is just my first name. First, middle, last, I get 16. You break that down into a 7. Now in Chaldean astronomy, they will read that, they won't necessarily break down that 7, or they'll keep the 16 as part of your description. So I would have a number of 16-7, because they're going to look at both. You're going to look at the compound number of 16, that means something in Chaldean, and then the 7 also means something. I don't know if I actually wrote those down. Nope. So the weird thing about this one is 16-7, when you look that up, all of the descriptions of 16 called it a rather peculiar number in numerology. And like the image of it was like a tower being struck by lightning or something. And it said that someone with this number, 16, is someone who is going to have a lot of loss in their life. They're going to lose a lot of loved ones. And it just seemed really strange to me. I was like, what is, I don't know. Because at first I didn't think, I was like, I haven't lost anyone. But, and we all lose loved ones, right? I mean, we've all lost probably grandparents or siblings, friends. I mean, I think everybody's had a loss in their life. But I was just recalling that, well, a lot of times when people are talking about their families and their parents and grandparents, I often sit there and think, well, most of my family was dead before I was born. So I only met one of my grandparents. The other 3 they'd all died before I was even born. And I had a small family anyways. It was just, me and my brother were the only 2 siblings. We all had a couple cousins and we were kind of spread out. So one of my uncles died when I was in high school. My dad died when I had graduated college. My other uncle died, oh gosh, I mean, now it's probably been like 15 years. So, and then my mom died a couple months ago. So it's kind of, I mean, I guess, yeah, you could say that I've had a lot of loss of loved ones. And then they also said that 16s will also live a long time. So they're going to outlive all of their loved ones too. So I'm like, oh, great. So I've got that to look forward to. So that was kind of weird. So at first I thought that I couldn't think of why. I was like, that doesn't make any sense for me. But I guess I just didn't meet a lot of these people. I wasn't super close to my uncles that passed away, and my dad I wasn't really either. Until about a month before he died. We patched things up, and I was like, okay, we're done. I'm not holding grudges anymore. I don't know if I've told this story either. But yeah, we didn't grow up very close together. And then we moved apart, so we weren't even geographically we weren't even close together. But so anyways, I just at the end of when I graduated high school, or I'm sorry, when I graduated college, he had passed away, and it was like a month after. I guess kind of figured stuff out or whatever, and I was just like, oh, I can't wait to start this new relationship, and everything, whatever happened between us is completely forgiven. We're done. No more of that. I was so excited to move forward and like have this like new relationship with my dad. And we probably wouldn't like ever get together in person because he'd had some health problems, and he was in Minnesota. I was moving to Iowa, so at least we'd be closer, but not likely to like go and visit each other on weekends or anything. But we'd be writing, calling. We'd have a relationship. I was pretty excited about that. And then he died like a month later. So it's kind of like, at least I got it out there. At least we, patched things up. But, so I don't know. Maybe that 16 has something to do with it. Maybe the loss of loved ones is accurate. Again, I just figured because I never met a lot of the people, or I wasn't close to them. So it doesn't feel, I guess, like a loss. But, even with my mom, I mean, I miss her. And it was hard at first. And it's just kind of a weird feeling to know she's not around. To not do the weekly video calls with her anymore is kind of strange. But it wasn't like devastating. And I think it's because she had so many health problems that, and we're both Christian, so you have this idea that, when you die, you get this glorified body where there's no pain. You are restored to perfect health. I mean, you don't have a physical body. They call it glorified. So there's no pain. There's no sorrow. I mean, that sounds like, that's, I think, what we all would want for our loved ones, especially if you've seen them with health problems. You've seen them maybe deteriorating. So I don't think it was really necessarily, I don't want to say it's not a bad thing, but you just think of what comes after, based on our religion and our faith. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe she is better off. I mean, she would have to be. According to our faith, she would have to, there wouldn't be any of the problems that she'd been having, again, all the health problems. So, I don't know. I never found it, like, all that devastating. And then my step-grandmother, she passed away earlier this year at 110 years old. So, I mean, that was like, I couldn't even be sad. Like, I loved her and I miss her. But 110, it's like, dang, that's a celebration. Like, dude, she made it. And she was, as far as I know, like, pretty coherent and cognizant all the way up to the end. So, I mean, that's an achievement. That's a party. So anyway, yeah, so I don't know. This whole number of 16, it was kind of weird because at first I was like, no, it means nothing. And then I started thinking, I was like, actually, it might be a little more accurate than I thought. So anyway, that is all I have for today for numerology. So next time, I'd really like to get into biblical numerology because I love numbers. For those of you who might not know, I got married on a specific day because I liked the numbers. It didn't really have any specific meaning. Again, to me, it's just a feeling of the numbers. My favorite number is 2, but I like multiples of 5 as well. They just feel like, I just like the feeling of them. I don't like the number 6. I don't really like 8. They just have a weird feel to me. I don't know. But anyway, so I'd like to get into biblical numerology at some point. Maybe we'll talk about astrology. I hadn't really decided yet. So, because these topics are all there's so much to them. So, as always, let me know if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, if there's any specific topic, if you have any questions or comments. There's the Interested Reader page on Facebook. You've got my Instagram. You can email me. Go to the website. There's a contact form. I haven't been working on the website very much lately, so I think that that annoying pop-up is still there, I'm pretty sure. But if you would, I would appreciate you signing up for that. And just getting in touch on social media. And if again, if you like what you hear, I would appreciate if you like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. It helps me out. If not, if you hate what you hear, then I guess let me know that too. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. And I will talk to you next time. It will probably be, I would guess, probably 2 weeks from today. So again, happy Halloween and happy All Saints Day when this episode is actually published. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode and are inspired to question and investigate the world around you. Let me know what you're thinking about. You can contact me through the website, theinterestedreader.com, send me an email at sarah@theinterestedreader.com, or join the Interested Reader group on Facebook. I'll see you at some later time T, where T is greater than T naught, and T naught is equal to now. Thanks for being an interested reader, and I'll see you next time.